Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about some of the updates to the college football playoff discussions. Look like expansion could be on hold at least for the time being out there. And now let's jump into the Missouri spring game. But before we do that, I do want to remind you all we get tons of comments and questions throughout the show. And the best way for you all to get your questions on the screen and we can have a fun back and forth here is to use the link at the bottom of the screen, GSMCPodcast.net. It's a huge help not only to us here at the Sports Network, but to you all to see your questions or comments on the screen. We can have a fun back and forth, and you can get more involved in the show. So definitely use that if you want to submit a question. Again, that's GSMCPodcast.net. Let's talk some spring football. It is very early on in the spring to be talking a spring game, but Missouri did us a favor and got out on the football field a little bit early this year, and the guys over at SB Nation for Missouri, or as they call it, Rock M Nation, had some great takeaways, and I had some takeaways as well to get into some very interesting team heading into spring and heading into 2024. Obviously, a huge year for Missouri, and Eli Drinkwitz in 2020 did a lot of things that people did not think they were capable of, and Brady Cook was a huge part of that. So it's only fitting that his team, the black team, won this game 10-9 on Saturday afternoon. The two touchdowns were a pass from Brady Cook to Joshua Manning, a young wide receiver that kind of broke out in this game for a 39-yard score, and then a little trickery on the second play, on the second touchdown of the day for the yellow team. It was Theo Weiss throwing a pass to Mookie Cooper, so a wide receiver to wide receiver connection there for an 82-yard touchdown. So the gold team actually went for two after they did that, and Nate Noel, the transfer from App State, got stopped at the goal line. So a 10-9 score. Obviously, these spring games, you always take everything with a grain of salt, but there were a couple of things that stood out to the guys over at SB Nation, but also to myself as I was watching this. Joshua Manning, first of all, 4 catches, 78 yards. He's walking into a very talented wide receiver room. But another guy that can rotate in is never a bad thing. Or if you want to play 4 wide receivers, it's never a bad thing. So to go with Luther Burden, who I think is the best wide receiver in the entire country, and then you have Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper as well, just an embarrassment of riches. If you add someone like Joshua Manning to that, it could be an absolutely ridiculous group that Brady Cook is throwing to. So it'll be very interesting to see how he develops and if he can get on the field early in 2024. And then another area that some Missouri fans were a little bit worried about going into this year, losing Enos Rackstraw and Chris Abrams-Drain, was the defensive backfield. And it looks like a couple of guys definitely stood out there. Torian Pride Jr., the transfer from Clemson, had a pick in the game, made a very athletic play on the ball, and showed what he's capable of coming over from Clemson. Absolutely huge pickup for that backfield. And then Drayden Norwood also played a very good game, had a couple of pass breakups, did a couple of really good things. So it looks like Missouri might have their 2 corners, at least for the time being, but it probably will not be, quite as strong as it was a year ago. I mean, it's hard to follow a duo that was as good as Rackstraw and Abrams-Drain was a year ago. So I think these two, as long as they can hold their own and, be competitive on every snap, I think Missouri will be more than fine. But the other side of the ball, the other backfield that everyone was a little bit worried about, Nate Noel, the guy we talked about, obviously from App State, and then Marcus Carroll, also coming over from the Sun Belt from Georgia State. Both had solid days. Obviously, when you're doing a spring game and you can't tackle, there's not much of a chance for running backs to have super gaudy numbers or anything crazy, so it's a lot of just watching how they carry the ball, the way they look, how confident they are with the ball in their hands, and both these guys looked the part. They looked like the guys that Missouri was hoping that they would get, and I think running back by committee is likely going to be the way that they go forward. It's not something that Eli Drinkwitz and company are necessarily super comfortable with. They've always been a group that has done one back that kind of carried the load. Cody Schrader obviously was that guy last year, but it looks like they're going to have to change things up a little bit, but they have 2 really good options in Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll to choose from. So very encouraging signs there from the spring game in that backfield. But maybe the biggest thing in this game was Chris McMillan. McClellan, excuse me, sorry about that. Chris McClellan, the Florida transfer on the defensive line, he was just absolutely disruptive all day. They did not release defensive stats, so I can't necessarily break down the exact number of tackles and that type of thing, but he was just all over the place. Every single play, you felt like whenever he was on the field, he blew something up. So he's someone that definitely keep an eye out on. We don't have exact, depth charts yet. There are some people that take whacks at it, but as of right now, it's hard to imagine Chris McClellan not being one of those starters on the defensive line come August 2024. So it'll be interesting to see how all of that develops. They definitely need some game changers with Darius Robinson leaving. They need the D-line to step up, and Chris McClellan could be a huge part of that. The O-line, the other side of the scrimmage, had a really good day for the most part. Caden Green, obviously the OU transfer that is highly touted, had a pretty much flawless day at left tackle, is an absolute beast. That is going to be a huge part of their success because protecting Brady Cook's blind spot is as important of a position as you could have on this Missouri team because without Brady Cook, it could be tough sledding for Missouri. But another guy that stood out was Connor Tollison, a guy that's supposed to start at guard this upcoming year, a guy that kind of struggled last year but seems to be kind of turning a corner in his career possibly. And then the O-line, it's very talented, at least the top end, but not necessarily as deep as some of the people that follow Missouri very closely would like. So I think they're going to need to stay healthy. I think health is going to be a huge part of the O-line and the quarterback game because obviously Brady Cook is what makes this go, but if the O-line gets unhealthy, it's very possible that Brady Cook could get unhealthy pretty quickly. So the hope there is the O-line can stay healthy and continue on playing the good football that they're very, very capable of playing. Another fun little nugget for Missouri fans out there is you did lose Harrison Mevis, the thicker kicker, as you used to call him around Columbia, but his replacement, Blake Craig, did not miss a kick on Saturday, looked really good, so as of right now, you got to be feeling okay. Losing a guy like Mevis is not an easy thing to replace, but it looks like you're off to a good start with Blake Craig, the sophomore, so very exciting news there because that was a huge part of their success a year ago. Mevis made a lot of big kicks in that year, and I think Missouri was a little bit worried about who was going to take over, but it looks like they're in good hands. Overall, I think this is going to be a really good team. This is a team that can make a ton of noise in an SEC where it feels like there are a ton of teams right in that second tier. Everyone's putting Georgia and Texas kind of up above the pack, but then there's a ton of teams that can make a lot of noise, whether you're talking about Tennessee or Ole Miss. Bama's obviously going to be a part of this picture. Missouri, tons of Kentucky, even a team that could make some noise. So there are a lot of teams in that second tier of the SEC that could be a huge part of what goes on there, and Missouri's chief among them. So I think when you look at this team, it's all about Brady Cook's health. If he can stay healthy, they'll go as far as he can take them. And then the O-line, as long as they don't suffer injuries, they should be okay. The wide receiver room is going to be incredible. The running back should be okay, again, as long as the O-line does not suffer some injuries. And then there's a lot of bounce of ball factors. There's a lot of, up in the air factors that they can't necessarily control. They will be going up against a really tough schedule, but at the end of the day, this is a very talented team that can do a number of things in 2024, and it'll be awesome to see if Eli Drinkwitz can follow up that incredible 2023 campaign with another campaign that puts Missouri even more on the map in the future of the SEC. But Missouri now will take a little bit of a break for a team as a team before they reconvene for summer workouts. Obviously, this is quite a long amount of time for these players to be on their own working out. So whether you agree with me or not, I tend to believe this is the time of year where Missouri's season will likely be decided. There are a lot of teams and a lot of players out there that likely would take this and kind of relax for a little bit, take a little bit of time off. And not to say that they shouldn't do that. They've been, working their butts off for quite some time. So definitely let your body heal, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, the teams that really, make their mark and make the playoff and do all the incredible things that Missouri wants to do, is they work when no one's watching. They work when they don't have scheduled workouts. Brady Cook will get the wide receivers together to go through passing drills and do workouts. And this is where Missouri's season will be decided in a lot of ways, because you'll get to see what type of team they are. Are they a team that is fully ready to step into that next echelon of the SEC and of college football, or they kind of sit around the 8-9 win mark for a couple of years because these days that you don't have structured practices kind of go by the wayside. Now I think Missouri is not one of those teams. I think they have great leadership, especially with Brady Cook, and I think they're going to take full advantage of it. But it'll be interesting to see if we get any updates on what's going on throughout this time and if they're taking full advantage of these days off. But we have tons of other spring games coming up, so I just want to take you through the schedule real quickly here. And it starts, obviously, with Missouri, obviously, this past week. Then BYU is playing on Friday of this week, so definitely another one to follow there if you're a Big 12 fan. April 6th is when stuff really starts to heat up. We have Clemson, Auburn, NC State, and a personal favorite of mine, UNLV, who is a very interesting team to watch. Then you have April 12th, that following Friday, Kansas goes to work. So if you're a Big 12 fan, you might want to tune in to some Friday spring games. And then we have April 13th, when everything goes crazy. You have Ohio State, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Utah, LSU, Penn State, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, and so many more. There are a million teams that are playing across the country on those days, and also April 20th. But on April 19th, that Friday, it looks like Louisville's going to have their spring game, another very interesting team coming off a huge year, so it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table. And then that following Saturday, we have Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, USC, Duke, and South Carolina. Tons of teams there. The following Saturday, West Virginia, Oregon, UCLA, Arizona, and Colorado. So a lot of those new Big 12 and Big 10 teams out there on that day. And then Wisconsin and Washington wait all the way until May 2nd and 3rd to play their games. So a lot to look forward to during spring. There is going to be a lot heating up around the country soon, because these spring games don't necessarily give us a ton of insight necessarily on what team we're going to get in 2024, but they give us a good bit, and at least we can get some from it. I think Missouri showed us a little bit of what they're capable of in 2024, but at the end of the day, until toe meets leather in August 31st, we don't know a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of these spring games develop, and I will definitely keep you updated on all of the takeaways as more of these happen. But definitely want to keep updated with all of the spring practices, because it's a crazy time of year. But right now we're going to take a second break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk instant impact freshmen. There are a ton of guys that have the ability to step onto their campus and immediately be stars for their team. So want to break down all of those guys. We did a part one quite a while ago, so definitely go check out that on the page here. But there are tons of guys that I did not get the chance to get to. So stick with us, and we will get into all of those right after this.